Wildlife means a lot to me in general, but there's certain species that mean something particularly special. The swallowtail butterfly is one of those. It's iconic. It's the wow factor. When you see one, it lifts your heart. It's something so special. It's big, it's showy, you get a glimpse of it, so it's tantalising, and I think that makes it all the more appealing.
It's always really exciting when you get to early May because we're expecting to see a swallowtail. There's lots of competition between visitors, who's going to see the first one, and it's just because they are spectacular. When you first glimpse it, your heart goes into your mouth, you think, wow, the size of them, majestic flight over the reed beds. That's your reward for all that hard work.
This reserve we're at now is a wonderful place. Just to come and get a sense of peace and quiet, tranquility. People look at it and think it's a wild place, and it is to a degree, but if it wasn't managed intensively, it would disappear. That's all of the wetland areas, the woodland areas, the meadows, the whole thing. It looks wild, but it's not. It's a very good place to see the swallowtail butterfly, and it's a very vulnerable species. It only exists in the Norfolk Broads, and the larva only feeds pretty much on milk parsley. Salinity isn't good for it. It begins to wilt and die out, so potentially we could lose swallowtail populations. Over the last 20 or 30 years they've decreased anyway by 56%, and so the area's managed to try and encourage that plant to thrive. If it does, then we get swallowtail butterflies.
Very gently brushing aside the fronds of the greater tussock sedge, just so I can see the milk parsley a bit clearer. Oh yes, yeah, here's two. So here's the milk parsley fronds, and there's one swallowtail egg just here, tiny white pearl, perhaps a millimetre in diameter, and another one just here. When the caterpillar hatches, it will eat the eggshell and then continue to feed on the milk parsley fronds. Even if you're not really into nature, you can't avoid the stories on the radio, the news, the newspapers, the declines of this species, the loss of that. And so even from a young age I thought, well, what can I do? How can I help? People who pick a career in wildlife conservation tend to sacrifice a good wage, and as a warden you sacrifice your body a little bit as well. It's incredibly physically demanding, but the rewards are, well this, the abundance of wildlife, hopefully some increases in various wildlife populations. When you see swallowtails, Norfolk hawkers, all the birds, the breeding success, then you know that you've done a small bit to help wildlife in Norfolk.
One of the reasons I do this job is to pass on my knowledge to a younger generation. I think children nowadays don't get exposed to the wild world as I did when I was a child, and I almost feel a duty to try and encourage them to see things, to open their eyes, open their ears. If you just stop and stare, it's amazing what you can find. It's not all about mammals, and it's not all about birds. It's the whole thing all works together.
We are a tidal floodplain, fresh water, and so twice daily the dikes rise and fall with the tides. Most things on this fen will not tolerate salt water. Our biggest concerns are centred around climate change. We know it's a fact because of the melting polar ice caps, and we have probes in these dikes that measure tide heights every 20 minutes. They measure salinity every 20 minutes, and we are seeing higher peaks, more regular flooding, more regular salt surges. Thankfully so far the salt surges haven't been detrimental, but like I say, we're very concerned because if these events do line up, the full moon, the northerly winds, the wet winters, a salt surge could be quite devastating, not just for us but for the whole of the Broads.
I think so many people haven't got that connection with nature nowadays, and I think that's a very important word actually, to connect with nature. We are part of it, it's not separate from us, and we need to connect with it to appreciate it fully.
People can help the Ted Ellis Trust, Wheatfen Nature Reserve, by offering their services as a volunteer, or through donations, through visiting.
So if your local area, your local wildlife means something to you, join your local wildlife trust, and that will enable them to ensure places like this exist for generations to come.